Come on, get your head back into it. Keep it smooth. Focus on these lines. You're just hopeless. You're just absolutely fucking hopeless.
So, why is braking so difficult? And why does crew chief lose his mind every session? Because even as a new sim racer, you start to understand quickly, braking is the heart of everything we do behind the wheel. Well, today we'll cover what I call the 3 big pillars of braking to get you from this to this in no time. I promise. And if you somehow miss my videos, I'm so back, guys. Let's freaking start this. Fundamentally, we use the brakes to decelerate the car down before a corner and rotate the car through the same corner. In some particular cases, we use them when there's a big wreck in front of us or to slow down quickly under a yellow flag. Right, guys? Anyways, the fact of the matter is we slow the car down to go quicker. So the first big pillar is that initial deceleration that usually happens on a straight line just before entering the corner. This is where a lot of things can go wrong. We can brake too early, too late, too soft or too heavy. But how do you get that perfect braking point and perfect braking force? Well, if you brake too early, then the guaranteed follow-up mistake is pressing the gas much earlier than the apex, which makes you lose rotation too soon, and the result is the car going wide on the exit of the corner, or you will have to modulate the throttle way too much, which leads to poor exit speed. Now, in most of the cases, braking too late comes with braking too hard as well. You might make the corner, but the tires are cooked on entry, they're really hot, so the grip level is way lower when you get to that mid-corner phase. You will slightly miss the apex. There are some clever drills to get way better at straight line braking, which, by the way, I explain those in more details in my new book that I just released. Seriously, you should check it out on my website. But the easiest way to know you're doing the right thing is to ask yourself 2 questions. On a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you feel in control while cornering, and do you have any throttle corrections whatsoever on the exit? You see, even though we talked about straight line braking, both questions are related to the mid-corner and the exit, and that's because the purpose of the initial braking phase is to prepare the mid and exit phases of the corner. That's how you judge it. If the corner feels way easier or in perfect control, you can add more steering, and if the car actually turns more, or you have to do a lot of throttle corrections on the exit, then you're more than likely not pushing enough speed in the corner, so you can either brake later or softer. Now, if the corner feels like you're not in control at all, you're either missing the apex or spinning the car, then we're exceeding the grip limit and we need to either brake a little bit harder or earlier. As a cheat sheet for straight line braking, always brake with the wheel completely straight or as close as possible to 0 degrees of steering angle, so that we're using all the grip just for braking. And secondly, make sure you're not dropping the brakes too quickly, so you keep threshold braking as long as possible. And speaking of possibility, if you enjoyed the video so far, and if you'd like to help the channel out, give this video a like or a subscribe. It's not costing you anything, but it means the world to me. So, in a nutshell, straight line braking is all about peak vertical deceleration, or how I like to call it, sustained stopping power. And to get more efficient at stopping the car quickly, start by picking a car without ABS, so you know when you're going past the grip limit under braking if you lock up the tires. Then set up an active reset point and brake in the same spot over and over again, measuring each time your braking distance. The goal is to shrink the braking zone and to achieve that sustained stopping power. Some quick tips. Focus on the sound of the tires, you should hear them under braking. Focus on actively squeezing the brake pedal instead of spiking it, and avoid gripping the steering wheel too hard, as you can feel the car shaking a little bit under braking if you're not dead gripping the wheel. Now, straight line braking is just the first pillar, and I really feel like trail braking is too much of a broader term. It's easy to get confused or overwhelmed, so I created the next 2 pillars by dissecting the end results of trail braking. I call them braking oversteer and braking understeer, or how to dance at the grip limit. But before we dive deeper into braking oversteer and braking understeer, I want to talk about another perspective, the one every new sim racer naturally gravitates toward. Why don't we just finish all the braking in a straight line and only then start turning? I don't want to waste your time here explaining what you already know about trail braking, but if you give yourself 2 minutes here, you'll find out some new things you didn't know before. So first of all, braking just in a straight line is not a stupid idea. In fact, a lot of beginner racing schools in the real world actually teach exactly this because it's safe, predictable, and very hard to mess up. Literally, they tell you to brake in a straight line, release, and then turn. It gives you 100% of the available grip for one purpose at a time. But of course, if straight line braking was enough, every fast driver in the world would use it, and they don't, because it's slow. So the moment you separate braking from turning, you're unintentionally doing two things. You're forcing yourself to finish the braking earlier, which means you enter the corner too slow, and you're leaving the front tires unloaded at turn-in, which means the car resists rotation. If you zoom in on braking telemetry, you'll notice small fluctuations, tiny up and down movements in brake pressure. These aren't mistakes, they're deliberate micro adjustments. Here's why. As they release the brakes, the front tires regain some grip, but this can induce understeer. To counter this, they reapply a slight bit of braking, shifting weight forward and helping the car rotate. But now, speed drops. To regain speed, they release the brakes again, but this reduces rotation. These cycles repeats like a dance as they fine-tune their balance between rotation and speed in real time. Instead of braking once and hoping for the best, they are constantly fishing for grip, making micro corrections to stay right on the edge of adhesion. And that's why inducing understeer and oversteer is crucial. Trail braking induces oversteer by shifting weight forward, but too much can lead to a spin or overslowing the car. To counter this, a micro release of the brakes restores speed and reduces oversteer. However, this quickly shifts the balance towards understeer, requiring a slight brake reapplication to regain rotation. It's a continuous fine-tuning process, balancing speed and rotation in real time. Holding the brakes while cornering will usually give you more rotation, and it's what I call braking oversteer. We are transferring weight forward, the nose of the car gets loaded, the rear gets lighter, so naturally the front tires gain grip while the rear tires lose grip. A small amount of oversteer on corner entry is what gives you that perfect rotation or that sharp front end that lets you point the car at the apex with confidence. Is the reason why we're trail braking in the first place, because when you're trail braking you can either spin the car under braking or miss the apex and understeer. This is important. We're basically saying that trail braking will give you two completely different behaviors depending on how much braking pressure you're trailing into the corner. Let me simplify this by introducing the concept of braking understeer. This is the scenario where you're getting too much rotation while trail braking. When that happens, the car is prone to spin, so to fix it, you must use the brake release to induce a tiny amount of understeer on purpose. Why the brake release? Because when you're releasing the brakes, the car speed will go up. If the speed goes up, then the rotation will go down. So the moment that you start releasing the brakes, you're giving grip back to the rear tires as well. The rear regains stability, the rotation slows down, and you essentially catch the car right before it rotates too far. That micro dose of understeer created by the brake release is what balances the entry. Now, if you would draw the braking shape at a microscopic level, braking understeer would look like this, with these points right here where we micro drop the pressure, is when we balance the spinning nature of the car and we catch it before it's too late. Notice it's also subtle, but we're humans and it's impossible to do a precise correction. If the car starts to oversteer, chances are you're gonna do the trail brake understeer technique and you will induce more understeer than you need, so the car will lack rotation. Now we have the opposite issue, and to fix it, we just do what it's called braking oversteer. What we did in the beginning basically, we're reapplying just a tiny bit of the brakes and upping the pressure gently. We get the car now to rotate back. And this cycle happens again and again a couple of times in each braking zone. But there's one more thing worth mentioning. Generally, trail braking, aka keeping the brake pressure applied while cornering, will sometimes lead to understeer, if the combination of braking, steering and the car's speed is more than what the tires can handle. This is one of the behaviors that makes trailbraking difficult to learn by students because the end result they sometimes get is exactly the opposite of what they expect. So even though they are trailbraking into the corner, they don't always get that rotation, and when that happens, the usual fix is braking softer, using a bit less of steering wheel angle or pushing a little bit less speed into the corner. You're basically asking too much out of those tires, and generally speaking, effective trailbraking happens in low percent braking. You know you're doing a good job at avoiding braking understeer, which, by the way, it only exists to correct oversteer. We don't want it otherwise. If you don't lock up your inside tires when cornering for cars without ABS, or if you avoid triggering the ABS at turn-in for cars equipped with ABS. If you see that the ABS is triggering at turn-in, or for a large period of time during trailbraking you have the ABS on, you're getting braking understeer, which is killing your rotation. You should only use braking understeer to correct the oversteer. Here's a short summary though. If you want to nail the timing of the corner, aka carrying the right amount of speed on entry, you have to get better at straight line braking alone. When we get to the turn-in phase though, we need to keep the braking pressure applied, so we need to trail brake. If we don't get the rotation at all from trail braking, it means we're braking too hard or the speed we put in is too high. But if we do get that rotation, and that rotation is more than we can handle, we need to correct it by inducing understeer with our brake release. So you're dancing under and over the grip limit at all times. Now I'll add one more thing which is equally important as good technique, and that is good pedal setting and good ergonomic position. What I mean by this is ideally when you're pressing the brake and you're pressing the brake hard, you're hitting that threshold pressure where you want to hold it constant as much as you can, even if you're driving an open wheel car. You don't want to have movement in your body. So for example, if I'm using the braking pedal and I'm braking hard, I'm moving a little bit in the seat. If you notice here, see, I'm going up a little bit. That's not necessarily ideal. You kind of want to minimize that. So finding and fine-tuning your setup so that you have minimal movement in your body itself as you press the brakes, that's really important. This is something that is on my to-do list as well, because moving here is not as ideal. You kind of want to put all that force in the seat itself. So you're getting pushed in the seat, but you're not sliding on the seat, if that makes sense. And secondly, it's how you feel the brake pedal itself. You don't want to feel like you're spiking it or you're hitting really hard. It's a consistent pressure, a squeeze that happens from the ball of your foot. You can either focus your pressure to the big toe, and then with that big toe you can kind of control the oversteer. Anything that helps you to control the oversteer or understeer and maintain that constant squeeze or constant pressure, constant asking for more or less rotation and being in control of that instead of dropping from 100% to 0 or vice versa, going from 0 to 100. That's going to really help you feel what the car is doing, how to induce oversteer and understeer, and ultimately how to really extract more lap time by rotating the car with your foot. Now, I know this over-understeer part was quite technical, but honestly, we're just scratching the surface here of proper braking technique. The concept of the three pillars, straight line braking, braking understeer, and braking oversteer, was something I used successfully with plenty of students in coaching sessions, so I'm positive that if you wrap your mind around it and you put it into practice, you'll improve by a lot. And if you want to accelerate that process and join thousands of drivers that have used my resources to get faster, I'm more than happy to have you on board on my website at GITGUDRacing.com. That's it for today though. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think and what you'd like to see next. And as always, I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.